You're probably already aware of the amazing shallow sand beaches that go into the miles of clear blue ocean that's available to the public in Cuba. But what we didn't realize, because it was our first time going, was the amount of terrible information about what we needed to bring along on our trip and what to expect. Disposable cups were almost always in short supply. Cuba is currently experiencing shortages, much like we did during COVID, except for them, it's a whole lot worse. Had we known this and just brought our own water bottle, we could have easily filled it up in a room or with a drink of choice from our favorite bar before heading out on a walk and spending a few hours at the beach, far away from the beach bar and the crowds. While we're on the topic of bars, let's break down the tip culture. Tips were always appreciated in any currency but never expected, and this held true no matter where we went throughout Cuba. Now, this was an extremely refreshing experience for us. We frequently head down to Mexico, and we always feel like they're just trying to fleece every last dollar out of every tourist when you're there. When we head back to Cuba, I'll be doing a couple of tipping things differently. First, I'll bring $1 American bills, and that'll be for any time we order a drink from any one of the bars or from one of the restaurants. Then I'll bring $5 and $10 Canadian bills. This will serve as a tip for any time like we have a meal or a sit down or somebody kind of goes above and beyond. That's where I'll be using those. As for my spending currency, we seem to get the best deals in US dollars, so I'm going to do that or put it on my credit card, one of those two. But why not give out Loonies and Toonies? I actually had to check in with the locals on this one because I couldn't figure it out either. Loonies and Toonies aren't accepted by the currency exchanges or by a lot of the shops. In fact, a lot of times the locals will come up to you and just see if they can get rid of their Loonies and Toonies for paper bills so that they can actually use them. Now, this is something we were very happy to do for them anytime we had change. But because we brought the wrong denomination of bills, we couldn't do this as often as we would have liked. Okay, so you might be thinking, why don't we just go to one of the local banks, currency exchanges, whatever, and just change our bills? Well, they just wouldn't do it. They will not give you Canadian for Canadian change or American. They won't break that down. All they're willing to give you is the Cuban peso. So why wouldn't we just exchange our Canadian or American money for the Cuban peso then? There's two reasons for this. First, you end up with a monster load of cash that you need to look after or carry or put in your hotel room somewhere. This is what $100 looks like in pesos. The second reason? There are a bunch of shops that sell exclusive products that you simply can't buy with pesos, and this is how the locals get paid. Things like Advil or toothbrushes. The Canadian and American dollar are highly sought after, so the locals can buy from these, whatever you want to call it, exclusive shops. But then why not just exchange the peso for the Canadian or the US dollar? This is because that exchange only happens one way. Once you buy their peso, you're using it or you're giving it away. You're married to that thing. You're not going to get Canadian or American money back from that peso. So what's the best way to get around in Cuba? In Varadero, there is this double-decker bus that you can ride that comes by every stop every 45 minutes or so. It only costs $5 USD and you can ride with this thing all day, at least till 6 p.m. That's when it's kind of done for the day. Just be sure to keep your receipt and you can hop on and off as many times as you want throughout that day. Just be aware, this is not the bus standards that we're used to. If it gets really busy, they really pack people onto these things. There was people sitting on stairs and kind of all over the place. And the second that door closes in the front, just hang on, giddy up. They're going immediately. Oh, if you missed the last bus that just kind of ripped through and you've got like 45 minutes till the next one kind of comes around, you've got kids and they need something to do, tell them to touch grass. Find the stuff that looks like this. It closes up when you touch it. There are small little bushes that kind of look the same, but there's no reaction to those leaves, just the ones that are kind of growing in and amongst the grasses that are in Cuba. Hopefully this will buy you the time to keep them occupied till the next bus rolls around. But what about attractions and outings? We heard there aren't as many. These are our top 4. The first thing we did is find out which the hottest weather days were, and we just planned on sticking those right onto the beach. Second, on a cooler day, take that bus we mentioned earlier and head to downtown Varadero. There's a few different stops you can get off when you get down to downtown Varadero, each one offering some different shops, attractions, and restaurants. The dolphin area is an attraction at one of the stops. Now, the shops and what they sell stays pretty much the same no matter which stop you get off at. One's a flea market, one's kind of like their open market. One is kind of more a street market style. But the thing that kind of changes is all the buildings are different. And there was this one stop, I think it was somewhere in the middle, that there had these free range chickens and chicks right beside the road, not fenced in. And for whatever reason, none of these things wandered onto the road. We thought that was pretty cool. Third, grab your drink bottle, your camera, and go find a bench next to the main road. Get ready for more classic cars and old vehicles in one place than a car show. We were so impressed at how much attention people took into making their ride their ride. Very unique. This kind of made us feel like we had stepped through some kind of a time warp. There's a ton of these classics driving around in downtown Varadero as well, so it doesn't hurt to take your camera. Some of them are cabs, and if you decide to take one of the cabs back to your hotel, which is definitely an option for you, prices are reasonable. Just be sure to negotiate the price before you ever get into the cab. Fourth, if you're a bit of a thrill seeker, it's time to go find WeFly. These guys are located along the beach on the opposite side of the marina at the far end of Varadero. To get there, take the bus to the marina shops, cross the road, there's kind of like this beach walk, head down there till you see the ocean, and hang a left, and you're probably already watching these things kind of overhead, zipping around with people and passengers all over the place. We've seen a different fly thing while we were there, by the way. It was literally a boat. They made a boat fly by strapping a hang glider to it and just chucking a motor on this thing. The regulations are clearly somewhat different than they are in Canada or the US. Sorry, we were playing around the beach that day, so I don't have a picture for you. You're just going to have to take my word on this one. Now, we kind of seen these guys all week because they were literally right by our hotel beach. And this guy is a boss. He does a little hover here just so the passenger's husband can get a video. I mean, what a champ. They definitely customized the ride to whoever was on board. Some of them were low and slow down the beach, some a little bit higher, and some people like to go really high and calm, fly in tandem with their spouse, or well, that's what we assumed anyway. And then for some of the thrill seekers, you could tell they were really messing around, making these things do all kinds of stuff. So it was kind of cool to watch. I'm sure if you're into that kind of thing, you'd have a blast. But what about the food after you've done all these activities throughout the day? Have you heard that it's bland, flavorless, and it just sucks? That's what we kind of heard. We were told to bring seasoning salt, pepper, hot sauce, yada yada. This definitely was not the case for us at all. This is the hotel we stayed at, and we found that the food was amazing the entire time. The only critique that we would give them is the food after a couple of days at the buffet. It kind of just seemed like the same kind of base things, and they just kind of float around and they change the seasoning and stuff on it a little bit. So it does become a little bit redundant. We just assume that's part of the supply chain and supply issues that are going into Cuba, and we're not going to fault them for that. The only thing that's probably going to affect some people, if you like your meat cuts lean and you don't care for any fat or gristle, the meat is trimmed to a whole different standard. It just feels like it's chopped up into whatever size they want it, and whatever happens to be in that cut, that's what's going into the dish. That being said, the best beef I have ever had in my life in a beef stew, I just had it in Cuba. It was freaking amazing. I actually went to go seek out the chef and personally thank him. It was that good. The only food item I wish I would have brought is a salad dressing. They've got tons of fruits, vegetables, greens, all kinds of leafy stuff that were amazingly fresh. But they had very few sauces or salad dressings that we liked to complement them. So I wish we would have brought something from home there. But how are the hotels in Cuba really? My personal recommendation is to stay at a 5-star, not anything less, and don't expect it to be like a 5-star in Canada or the US. The rooms are nice, but cleanliness and maintenance standards are just not what you're used to. We had trouble with the AC in our room. It kind of worked a little bit, but it's just not the ice cold AC that we can get back at home. Kind of things like that. If you ask for these items to get fixed, they will promptly call somebody and do something, but we just found we asked for somebody to take a look at our AC a number of times and it never got resolved. So what about charging your devices and what are the room power options? There were no shortage of places to plug in. We had tons of plugs all over our room, but they were all 220 volt. Now you can stick a standard North American plug into there. Just be sure that the device that you're bringing along can support up to 220 volts. Now there was a single 110 volt plug in our room. I was actually in the bathroom on the blow dryer. But of course, that did not work. But what about bugs? Are there a lot of mosquitoes and that kind of thing going on around the resort? Now, this is the horror story that we were told before we went, that the bugs were absolutely insane, that there were no-see-ums and mosquitoes and sandflies and all kinds of stuff like that. First, in our room, the only time there were bugs is when we were cooling it off in the evening and we left the doors open for too long. As far as the beach went or anywhere around the resort, it was very, very minimal. Enough that we never used it. We never even opened up our bug spray. Now, we did talk to guests from other hotels, and they did mention bugs was a problem. So it wouldn't hurt to pack whatever bug spray, bug lotion. If you do put this stuff on, just remember, put your sunscreen on first. The bug spray goes on the exterior, or your bug lotion goes on last to make it the most effective. Now, me and the wife had a theory as to why our resort had so few bugs. We had these little guys absolutely everywhere throughout the resort. And our theory was they just ate everything. And I was totally cool with that. It was cool to watch these things rip around all day. So what are the people of Cuba like? Every single person that we met, from staff to people downtown, anywhere, were some of the friendliest people that we've ever ran into anywhere. Now, some of them spoke better English than others, but both of us were so willing to communicate with each other, we could always find a way to kind of make it work, even if their English was pretty poor. And that was the case most of the time. They had just enough English to kind of get by, but there were very few people that were completely fluent in English. It's a totally different world down there for what we're used to, and they found that interesting, and we found it interesting that it was a different world for us down there. So we had quite a few good stories about what their life was like, and they were very curious about how we deal with cold and snow. But what about the entertainment options at the hotel? You have a few options. The hotels offer different entertainment every night. We were amused by Mr. Time Travel. This guy was so committed to his craft. He was kind of in the area where we were for about an hour. And we never once seen this guy break character, even if it was to interact with a hotel guest or somebody that was around there, or to accept a tip. He did. Man, this guy almost had me sold that something had gone wrong with time travel. If you're into clubbing, head to downtown Varadero. One of the people we talked to, they were absolutely totally down with the nightlife, and that was where they were spending their time every single night. We're not that kind of people. We kind of like peace, quiet, evening walks, beaches, sun, and just hanging out. One thing that's also noteworthy, the spas are open later than what we were used to seeing at other resorts. They were open till 7 at our resort. So you could have at 6 o'clock when the sun set, rip down, get a massage, go have a shower, and then head down to the buffet after. So that's definitely an option there. But what about internet? Can you get Wi-Fi at your hotel? Shorter answer is yes, but Cuba has a very regulated internet. The content there is all seriously moderated, so if you want the browsing experience to be kind of like what you're used to back at home, I strongly urge you to get a VPN. You can't even get the VPN when you're there. Even downloading little apps to try to get ourselves prepped for stuff to do on the plane for our flight back home, couldn't download those either. So this isn't sponsored by Nord, but this NordVPN is the VPN I've been using for over a year. It let us browse like we were back at home. So if you want to surf the internet like you do when you're back at home, strongly recommend use whatever VPN that you like. Just make sure you have that downloaded because you can't download it when you get there. As for the rest of the Wi-Fi or internet speeds, it is slow, spotty, and it'll disconnect quite a bit. It's not what you're used to back at home, but it is enough to get by. Oh, another thing that you should pack is pack a roll or two of toilet paper just in case. We had no issues at our hotel, but we found that when we went to public bathrooms, toilet paper and believe it or not, toilet seats were lacking in some of the places, like even in the airport. All right, so my last tip, you should always treat anyone that has access to your toothbrush well. Don't forget to tip your maid. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, let me know in the comments down below. If you're headed down to Cuba, hopefully I helped you get the most out of your trip. Enjoy.